Hey guys, it's MugenLord here. I just wanted to make a quick video regarding Kingdom Hearts 4 and whether or not Final Fantasy characters will play an integral part moving forward within this entry and moving forward period and within the Kingdom Hearts series. Because I have to admit to you guys, I think I never said this to you before, but when it came to Kingdom Hearts, I didn't get into Kingdom Hearts because of Disney characters. I was much more into Kingdom Hearts and I was drawn into it out of curiosity of what they was going to do with the Final Fantasy characters. The fact is that Disney characters with Final Fantasy characters just seemed like something so bizarre, nonsensical, but yet somehow they made it work. So now as we started progressing through most of the spin-off Kingdom Hearts games, I started noticing that Final Fantasy started having less and less of an impact within the game. More specifically, Kingdom Hearts 3, which was really like surprised. I would say surprising, but it really upsetted me, disappointed me, was because throughout the reveal of Kingdom Hearts 3, I noticed we started seeing gameplay, a lot of Disney characters, but there was no signs of Final Fantasy characters, which really got me nervous, and I had a feeling that they weren't going to appear in the game after a while. But yet, Square Enix had then robbed us Final Fantasy fans by including Final Fantasy characters within the Remind DLC, which was really stupid, you know, and they were only in a cutscene, which really sucked. I don't know why they went with their approach, but they knew putting Final Fantasy characters in there was going to get the Final Fantasy fan base to get in there and actually buy the DLC just to simply see those characters. So my thing is, will they respect the Final Fantasy brand within Kingdom Hearts, and will they respect the fans who came to Kingdom Hearts and enjoyed Kingdom Hearts because they wanted to see how they will approach Final Fantasy? Will they do something much different? Now, the thing is, with Kingdom Hearts 4, we do notice some significant changes when it comes to the art style of how Sora and just the world itself look in general, and also we already see what Nomura himself already have planned with Baron Rex and some of the elements that he wants to take from his canceled Final Fantasy 13 and somehow weave it into Kingdom Hearts 4 within the Baron Rex property and within Kingdom Hearts. So knowing that and looking at how Sora looks more like Final Fantasy rather than the Disney side, and you can also see a hint of that at the fact is that he don't have those goofy looking Disney shoes anymore. Now he has more regular size shoes, more of a style of anime Final Fantasy look compared to any of the other styles that he had in the past. So that also makes me wonder, will Final Fantasy characters return, and will they be much more important than ever before? Because we were pretty much teased with Cloud and Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, more specifically Kingdom Hearts 2, is for this fact is that we never got a chance to see what happened with Cloud and Sephiroth after they got into their fight. After you beat Sephiroth, Cloud and Sephiroth just take off and you never seen them again. So will we actually ever have a follow-up? And if we do get a follow-up, how much of an important impact will Sephiroth, Cloud will play, and how much interaction will Sora have with those characters? And the fact is that Final Fantasy is now been getting a lot of promotion, and it seemed like they're really putting emphasis on pushing the Final Fantasy brand much harder through examples like Final Fantasy 14, which has been really just like blowing up like the internet as far as the MMO genre is concerned, and also Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which everybody is, you know, which has a lot of like division, but is still the most talked about Final Fantasy game at this point. And then of course, just recently in my past video where I talked about Final Fantasy 16, it's finished its development, so we will be expecting a Final Fantasy 16 advertisement and marketing campaign going on really soon. So it's like they really put in a lot of strong emphasis in Final Fantasy. So you would think that Kingdom Hearts 4 would be a perfect time to actually start meshing and bringing those things together to cross promote not only the Disney side of things, but also the Final Fantasy side, because that's what it is. It's a celebration of both Disney and Final Fantasy throughout this crossover, and it seemed like that the Final Fantasy fans have gotten the short end of the stick, people like me, and I don't think that's fair. So I'm figured like maybe this will be a perfect chance to start crossing over some of those Disney fans or just Kingdom Hearts fans in general who never really played Final Fantasy or not really too familiar with Final Fantasy, can now be able to be more familiarized with the brand, with the IP and its characters, and it'll be a perfect time to cross them over into the Final Fantasy community as far as you know, Final Fantasy 14. Maybe get them to get into the Final Fantasy 14, or maybe get them into the upcoming Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2, or Final Fantasy 16 that's going to be released pretty soon. And that's what I'm hoping for, and I think that would be a smart thing on Square Enix side if they go with that approach, now that they're trying to actually push a stronger marketing campaign for Final Fantasy. It's like, I think this would be a perfect time. Crossover's been proven that it really does help when it pushed a certain brand, IP, franchise, or whatever you want to call it. Smash Bros. Is a perfect example of that. It helped Xenoblade Chronicles, Metroid, and many other franchises, especially like Kid Icarus, because it's Super Smash Bros. And the crossovers and stuff. So I think this is a perfect chance to actually go deep dive into Final Fantasy. And another thing that I would appreciate what they would, if you know, that they could do, I wish they would do, is how about we visit some Final Fantasy worlds within Kingdom Hearts 4. I think it's a long time coming. I think it's a long time overdue. I think I felt robbed at the fact is that in the Kingdom Hearts games, we only got a chance to visit Disney worlds, but we haven't got a chance to visit any of the Final Fantasy worlds, which I don't think is fair as well. I want to see Midgard. I want to see Balamb Gardens. I want to see a lot of places from the various different Final Fantasy worlds be represented moving forward in Kingdom Hearts. And like I said before, you'll see my video that I'm pretty much done with Kingdom Hearts, or I would say that I'm more sitting back and wait and see if the next Kingdom Hearts game is going to be something that I will play instead of making it a day one purchase. I'll put it that way. Kingdom Hearts 4 is not a day one purchase for me until I see if there's something that's going to pull me in to it. And what will really pull me in is if Final Fantasy play much of an integral role in the story. But that's pretty much my opinion and how I feel about Kingdom Hearts 4 and Final Fantasy characters. I definitely want to hear your thoughts. Like, would you like to see Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy actually come together and Final Fantasy play a much bigger role, or are you just fine with Disney just taking the front seat and they just totally just forget about Final Fantasy altogether? I just definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you like the video, definitely hit that like button because it really does help me out, and hit that red subscribe button if you like this content. So before I leave, make sure you hit that bell to be notified for more gaming news and also Kingdom Hearts updates. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.